The feeling started small, almost imperceptible. Just a nagging sense that something was off in Evelyn's home. That the house she'd lived in for 3 years with her husband Marcus felt different when she was alone. That objects weren't quite where she'd left them when she returned from work. That the air itself held a tension she couldn't name but felt constantly pressing against her skin like invisible hands. At first, she dismissed it. Everyone felt paranoid sometimes, right? Everyone had moments where they wondered if they'd locked a door or turned off the stove or moved something without remembering. It was normal, human, nothing to worry about. But it kept happening, and the feeling kept intensifying. Books, she was certain she'd shelved, horizontally, would be standing vertically. Her laptop would be positioned at a slightly different angle on her desk. The pillows on the couch would be rearranged in ways so subtle she questioned whether she was imagining the differences. Her car keys would be in her purse when she'd sworn she'd left them on the kitchen counter. Small things, tiny discrepancies, but consistent, relentless, building into a pattern she couldn't ignore no matter how much she wanted to. "You're being paranoid," her husband Marcus said the first time she brought it up. They were sitting at dinner, and Evelyn had just mentioned that her notebook seemed to have been moved. His voice was gentle, patient, the tone someone uses with a child who's imagined monsters under the bed. "The house is fine. Nothing's different. You probably moved it yourself and forgot. You've been stressed from work. Maybe you should take a few days off. Relax. Clear your head." Evelyn wanted to believe him. Marcus had been her mate for 3 years, her husband for 2. They'd bonded shortly after meeting, or at least she'd felt the mate bond snap into place with an intensity that left no room for doubt. He was a respected beta in the Silver Pine pack, well-liked by everyone, trustworthy and stable. Everyone said she was lucky to have him. Said he was attentive and caring. Said their bond was strong and their future bright. Her own parents had practically cried with joy when she'd introduced to Marcus as her mate. So why did she feel like she was being watched in her own home? Why did every room feel like it contained hidden eyes tracking her movements? Why did her wolf, usually calm and content, keep growling at threats Evelyn couldn't see, but absolutely knew were there? "Maybe you're right," she'd said that first time, forcing a smile she didn't feel. "Maybe I'm just stressed. Work has been intense lately. I'll try to relax more." But relaxing didn't help. Because the feeling wasn't stress-induced imagination. It was real, specific, concrete. When she was in the kitchen cooking, she felt eyes boring into her back with such intensity it made her skin crawl. When she was reading in the living room, trying to focus on words that swam meaninglessly across pages, she felt observed from multiple angles. When she was alone in any room of the house, especially her home office, where she worked, remotely 3 days a week, the sensation of being monitored intensified until her wolf was pressed so close to the surface that her fingernails would sharpen into claws without her consciously shifting. "There's nothing there," Marcus would say, every time she expressed concern. He'd walk through the rooms with her, his arm around her shoulders in a gesture that should have been comforting but somehow felt constraining. He'd point out empty spaces, empty corners, empty air. "See? No one's watching. You're safe. I'm here. Nothing bad is going to happen to you. I promise." But the feeling persisted, got stronger, evolved from general unease to specific certainty. Someone or something was watching her, constantly, all the time. Even when Marcus was home, even when she was supposedly safe in their shared space, the eyes were there, invisible but undeniable, present but undetectable, real despite everyone telling her they weren't. Then things started getting stranger, moving beyond feelings into observable phenomena that Evelyn couldn't rationalize away no matter how much Marcus tried. Objects she was absolutely certain she'd placed in one specific location would appear in another location entirely. Books she hadn't touched in months would be opened to specific pages when she came home from work. Her laptop, which she always shut down completely and closed, would be warm to the touch like someone had been using it recently, even though she'd been out for hours, and Marcus claimed convincingly that he hadn't been home or touched her computer. The shower in their master bathroom would be damp, the tiles still wet, the mirror fogged. When she arrived home to what Marcus insisted was an empty house where no one had been all day. "You probably moved those things yourself and forgot," Marcus would explain with that same gentle patience that was starting to feel less comforting and more condescending. "Or I moved them and didn't mention it because it wasn't important enough to remember." It's not a conspiracy, Eve. It's just normal household stuff. You know how it is. You're thinking about 10 different things. You put something down without really registering where, then later you can't remember. Happens to everyone. You're overthinking this. But Evelyn wasn't overthinking. She was a wolf. She had enhanced senses that humans didn't possess. She could smell when someone had been in a space recently, could distinguish individual scents and identify how long ago they'd been present. Could feel the lingering warmth of human or wolf presence in the air currents. Could track subtle disturbances in dust patterns, in the way light fell, in the energy signature that every living being left behind when they occupied a space. And her house, her supposedly safe private home, was full of disturbances she couldn't explain and Marcus wouldn't acknowledge. The shower incident was particularly troubling. Evelyn had come home from a day-long training session at PAC headquarters. She'd been gone from 7 in the morning until 6 in the evening, 11 hours during which the house should have been completely empty. Marcus worked at the PAC offices too, and their schedules that day had aligned perfectly. They'd driven in together, worked in adjacent buildings, were supposed to drive home together. Except Marcus had claimed he needed to stay late for a meeting, told Evelyn to take his car and he'd catch a ride with someone else. So Evelyn had driven home alone to their empty house, had walked into the master bedroom to change out of her work clothes, and had immediately noticed that the bathroom door was ajar when she always kept it closed, had noticed moisture in the air, had noticed the mirror was fogged and the shower tiles were wet, and there was a towel on the floor that hadn't been there when she'd left that morning. Someone had showered in her bathroom, recently, while the house was supposed to be empty. While both she and Marcus were supposed to be at work, someone had been in her most private space without permission or explanation. She'd called Marcus immediately, her hands shaking as she held the phone. "Someone's been in our house. Someone used our shower. The bathroom is wet and there's a towel, and I don't Marcus. Someone broke in." "Eve, calm down. No one broke in. I came home during lunch. Took a quick shower because I'd gotten sweaty from moving boxers in the storage room. Didn't think to mention it because it wasn't important. That's all. Nothing sinister." His voice on the phone had been so reasonable, so calm, so completely believable. "You're jumping to worst-case scenarios again. Remember what the PAC therapist said about managing your anxiety? You need to consider logical explanations before assuming threats. You came home, but you didn't tell me because it was a 10-minute stop. I showered, changed shirts, left. Why would I text you about something so mundane? Eve, seriously, you're making mountains out of molehills. It's concerning. Maybe you should talk to Dr. Saunders about increasing your anxiety medication." The breaking point came 3 months into the paranoia that wasn't actually paranoia at all. Though Evelyn didn't know that yet. She was working from home on a Tuesday, alone in the house, while Marcus was at PAC headquarters supposedly attending back-to-back meetings that would keep him occupied all day. She'd been sitting at her desk for hours, reviewing financial documents for the PAC's quarterly report when she felt it again. That overwhelming, undeniable sensation of being watched, of eyes boring into her back with an intensity that made her wolf snarl and press so close to the surface that her vision started to shift between human and wolf sight. She spun around quickly, fast enough that a normal observer wouldn't have time to hide. But the room was empty. Completely, utterly empty. Just her desk, her chair, her bookshelf, her weight, the bookshelf. Something about it was wrong. The books were arranged almost identically to how she'd left them. Almost, but not quite. One spine was slightly more protruding than it should be. Just a millimeter. Just enough to catch her attention now that she was looking closely. Evelyn walked over slowly, her heart pounding. She reached for the book, a thick volume on wolf history she'd never actually read, just kept for decoration. Pulled it out carefully. And behind it, nestled in the space where the book had been, was a small black object the size of her thumb. A camera. A tiny high-tech camera with a lens pointed directly at her desk, at the place where she sat every day, where she worked, read, sometimes shifted through paperwork in her wolf form because it was comfortable and this was supposed to be her private space. Evelyn's hands started shaking. She stared at the camera, her mind racing through implications. Someone had put this here. Someone had been watching her. For how long? Days? Weeks? Months? And who? Who would you're home early? Marcus's voice from the doorway made Evelyn jump. She turned to find him standing there, his expression carefully neutral. Too carefully neutral. Like he was working to keep his face blank. I found a camera. Evelyn held up the tiny device, hidden in the bookshelf, pointed at my desk. Marcus? Her voice cracked. Someone's been watching me. In our house? Someone give me that. Marcus moved forward quickly, his hand outstretched. Let me see. We need to figure out who put it there, but Evelyn pulled back, her wolf suddenly alert in a way that made every hair on her body stand up. You don't seem surprised? You're not, Marcus. Why aren't you surprised that there's a surveillance camera in our house? I am surprised. I'm trying to stay calm. Not panic you more than you already are. Marcus was still moving toward her, his hand still reaching. Give me the camera, Eve. We'll take it to PAC security. Figure out who's been spying on us. On us? Evelyn's voice rose. This camera isn't pointed at the room generally. It's pointed specifically at my desk. At where I sit. At me. She backed up another step, putting more distance between them. Marcus, did you put this here? What? No. Why would I, Eve? You're being paranoid again. I would never spy on you. You're my mate. I love you. Why would I then? Why do you look guilty right now? Evelyn's wolf was growling, pressing so close to the surface that she could feel her eyes starting to glow. Why do you look like you got caught instead of like you're angry someone violated our home? Marcus's expression shifted. The careful neutrality cracked just slightly, revealing something underneath. Something that looked like calculation. Like he was weighing options and deciding which lie would be most believable. And that's when Evelyn knew. Knew with absolute certainty that made her stomach drop and her world tilt. Her husband, her mate, had put the camera there, had been watching her. For reasons she couldn't begin to understand, but suddenly, desperately needed to know. Why? The question came out barely above a whisper. Why would you spy on me? I'm your mate, your wife. We're supposed to trust each other. Why would you? Because I needed to know. Marcus's voice changed, lost the gentle patience and gained an edge. I needed to know when it would happen. When your abilities would finally surface. When you'd stop being just another pack wolf and become what you actually are. Evelyn stared at him. What I actually am? Marcus, what are you talking about? Your lunar bloodline, Eve? One of the last? Maybe the last? Marcus was watching her with an intensity that felt clinical now. Detached. Like she was a specimen under observation rather than his supposed mate. Your grandmother was Luna. Died before she could train you, but the bloodline manifests eventually. Usually, by age 25. You're 27 now. Overdue. So I've been monitoring. watching for signs, waiting to see when your powers would surface so I could. He stopped. So you could what? Evelyn's voice was cold now. Her wolf had gone from agitated to absolutely furious, ready to tear out of her skin and attack. Finish that sentence, Marcus. So you could do what? Capture them. The admission came out flat. Matter of fact. Lunar bloodline powers are rare, valuable. If I could document them manifesting, record the exact moment, prove you had them, I could sell that information. Sell you to researchers, to collectors, to anyone willing to pay for access to abilities that haven't been seen in generations. The room went silent. Evelyn heard her own breathing, loud in her ears, heard her heartbeat hammering, heard nothing from Marcus because apparently he didn't have enough conscience left to feel shame about what he'd just admitted. You, Evelyn's voice broke. You married me to sell me? You've been spying on me for how long has this been going on? Since before we mated? Marcus shrugged like this was all perfectly reasonable. I identified you as potential lunar bloodline 2 years before I approached you. Did the research? Confirmed your grandmother's lineage? Realized you might manifest powers eventually. So I pursued you. Made you fall in love with me. Made you think we were fated mates, when really I was just creating a cover story that would let me monitor you constantly. We're not actually mates. Evelyn felt something inside her chest crack. The bond she'd felt with Marcus's connection she'd thought was destiny had been a lie. All of it. 3 years of her life. 3 years of believing she'd found her person. 3 years of trusting him with everything. All a manipulation. No. The mate bond was faked. There are potions, rituals, ways to create the sensation of a destined connection when there isn't one. Marcus was still speaking in that clinical tone. I needed you to trust me completely. Needed access to your home, your schedule, your private moments. Being your mate was the most efficient way to achieve that. And the cameras? There's more than one, isn't there? Evelyn's mind was putting pieces together now, racing through implications. This isn't the only one. How many are there? Marcus? How many cameras have been watching me in my own home? 7. 1 in every room you frequent. I needed multiple angles to ensure I didn't miss the manifestation moment. Marcus looked almost proud of his thoroughness. The one you found was just the study. There's also bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, living room, garage, and backyard. Comprehensive coverage. Nothing you do goes unrecorded. Evelyn felt bile rise in her throat. Bathroom, bedroom, the most intimate, private moments of her life. All recorded. All monitored. All part of Marcus's plan to catalog her like some kind of experiment before selling her to the highest bidder. You're insane. Her voice came out shaking, but not with fear. With rage. With betrayal so profound she could taste it. You're absolutely insane if you think what? That I'm just going to let you do this? That I won't tell the pack? That there won't be consequences? Who would believe you? Marcus's smile was cold. You've been complaining about paranoia for months. Imagining threats. Seeing things that aren't there according to everyone you've talked to. I've been laying groundwork. Making sure anyone you tell will think you're having a mental break rather than uncovering truth. You've been gaslighting me. The realization hit like physical blow. Every time I said something felt wrong, every time I noticed the cameras or the disturbances or the feeling of being watched, you told me I was paranoid, made me doubt my own perceptions, made me think I was losing my mind. It was necessary. If you'd trusted your instincts too much, you might have found the cameras earlier. Before the powers manifested. Before I had evidence worth selling. Marcus took a step toward her. But it's fine. You found one camera. I can relocate. Reset. We'll just call this a minor setback and continue monitoring. No. Evelyn's voice cut through his casual dismissal like a blade. We won't, because I'm leaving, right now. And I'm taking this camera to pack security and telling them everything you just admitted. Eve, don't be dramatic. Where are you going to go? This is your home. I'm your mate, you're not my mate. The scream tore out of her before she could stop it. You're a predator who's been stalking me for 3 years. You're someone who violated every boundary. She stopped as power suddenly surged through her body. Something vast and ancient and absolutely furious rising from depths she'd never accessed before. The lunar bloodline. It was manifesting. Right now. Right here. In response to her rage and betrayal and desperate need to defend herself, silver light exploded from Evelyn's skin, bright enough to illuminate the entire room. Her wolf surged forward but didn't. Shift instead merged with her human form in a way she'd never experienced. Power flooded every cell, every nerve, every fiber of her being. And with it came knowledge, understanding of what she was, what she could do. Lunar bloodline wolves could command moonlight itself, could pull power directly from the moon goddess, could manipulate silver magic in ways that made them functionally untouchable by normal wolf standards. And Evelyn, who'd spent 27 years being just another pack member, suddenly had access to all of it. Marcus's eyes widened. Finally, it's manifesting. I need to. He reached for his phone, presumably to record this moment. Evelyn's hand shot out, and the phone flew across the room, smashing against the wall with enough force to shatter. Her power, responding to her will, destroying the tool Marcus wanted to use to document her for sale. You're not recording this? Her voice echoed with layered power. You're not selling this. You're not doing anything except answering for what you've done. Eve, calm down. I know you're upset, but upset. Silver light crackled around her fingers. I'm not upset. I'm enraged. You spent 3 years lying to me. Violated my privacy in every possible way. Planned to sell me like property? And you think I'm just upset? Marcus's expression shifted again. The clinical detachment melted away, replaced by something that looked like actual fear. I was just following orders. The people who hired me, they're powerful. Connected. You can't fight them. You should just people who hired you. The implications slammed into Evelyn. This wasn't even your idea. Someone else is involved. Who, Marcus? Who paid you to do this? I can't, they'll kill me if I tell you. Evelyn's power flared and suddenly Marcus was pinned against the wall by invisible force. Not touching him. Just holding him there with pure silver magic that responded to her fury. They should worry more about what I'll do if you don't tell me. Names. Now, Alpha Garrett. The confession burst out of Marcus like he couldn't hold it back against the pressure of her power. Alpha Garrett hired me 3 years ago. Said the pack needed to identify and control lunar bloodline wolves before they became threats. Said you were suspected lunar and needed monitoring. Said if I could prove your abilities and bring you under pack control, I'd be rewarded. Evelyn felt the world tilt again. Alpha Garrett, the pack leader. The wolf everyone trusted and followed. He'd orchestrated this. Had hired Marcus to spy on her. To fake being her mate? To document her powers so the pack could what? Control her? Own her? Use her? How many others? Her voice was deadly quiet now. How many other wolves are being monitored like this? How many other fake mates has he planted? I don't know. I only know about you. But Marcus swallowed hard. He's been running this program for years. Identifying bloodline wolves. Monitoring them. Some are convinced to join the pack willingly. Others are handled. Made to comply through various means. And if my powers had never manifested, if I'd turned out to be just a normal wolf, then the cameras would have been removed. The fake mate bond would have been quietly dissolved. You would have been released back into the general pack population, never knowing you'd been under observation. Marcus's voice was small now. It was supposed to be clean, undetectable. You finding the camera wasn't supposed to happen, but it did happen. And now you're going to help me expose this entire operation. Evelyn released him from the wall, but kept her power ready. You're going to show me where every camera is? You're going to give me all your communications with Alpha Garrett? You're going to provide evidence of every single thing you've done. And then you're going to stand beside me while I bring this to the Council of 5 Territories and watch your precious Alpha answer for systematic abuse of pack members. I can't, they'll kill me, and I'll kill you if you don't. The threat wasn't empty. Evelyn could feel her lunar power ready to respond to her will, ready to defend, ready to destroy if necessary. Choose carefully, Marcus, choose very carefully. Over the next 2 hours, Marcus showed Evelyn every camera location, 7 in her house, just like he'd said. But also because of course tracking devices in her car, her phone, her laptop, monitoring software that recorded every message, every call, every search. He'd been documenting her entire life for 3 years, building a comprehensive profile to sell to whoever Alpha Garrett designated as buyer. There are files, Marcus said quietly, as they stood in his home office room. Evelyn had barely been allowed to enter during their marriage. On that server, everything I've recorded. All the documentation of the monitoring program, communications with Garrett, names of other wolves being watched. It's all there. Evelyn accessed the server, found folders with her name containing thousands of hours of footage, found other folders with names. She recognized pack members she knew, some she considered friends. At least a dozen wolves being systematically monitored for various bloodline traits, and at the center of it all, detailed communications between Marcus and Alpha Garrett planning the entire operation, discussing wolves like they were assets to be managed, deciding who could be controlled and who needed to be eliminated as threats. Years and years of systematic abuse documented in meticulous detail. We're taking all of this to the council, Evelyn said. Tonight. Right now. And Marcus, if you try to run, if you try to warn Garrett, if you do anything except cooperate completely, her eyes glowed silver, I will hunt you down. Lunar bloodline wolves can track anyone touched by moonlight. And you, husband, are absolutely drenched in my moon-touched power now. I'll find you anywhere. They drove to council headquarters in silence. Marcus white-knuckled at the wheel, Evelyn radiating barely contained power in the passenger seat. She'd called ahead, demanded emergency session, used her newfound lunar authority to override normal protocols. The council would see her tonight whether they wanted to or not. The 5 territorial alphas were assembled when Evelyn and Marcus arrived. Alpha Garrett was there. Chuhei had a council seat as one of the most influential pack leaders. He looked surprised to see them. Looked more surprised to see Evelyn glowing with obvious lunar power. So it finally manifested, he said with satisfaction. Excellent. We can begin proper training and integration into your surveillance program? Into your systematic control of bloodline wolves? Into whatever sick operation you've been running for years? Evelyn's voice cut through his greeting. No. We're not beginning anything except your trial for abuse of pack members. Garrett's expression shifted. I don't know what Marcus has told you, but you're clearly confused. There's no surveillance program. No systematic, I have proof. Evelyn pulled out a hard drive Marcus had given her. Hours of surveillance footage. Communications between you and Marcus planning my monitoring. Names of other wolves being watched. Documentation of fake mate bonds being created to facilitate observation. All of it right here. All of it ready to be submitted as evidence. The other council alphas were looking at Garrett now with expressions ranging from shock to calculation. Garrett, Alpha Soren from the Northern Territories, said slowly, Is this true? Have you been conducting unauthorized surveillance on your pack members? It's not unauthorized. I have full authority within my own pack not to violate mate bonds, not to create fake connections, not to monitor wolves in their own homes without consent. Alpha Chun from the Eastern Territory was standing now. If what she's saying is true, this is grounds for immediate removal from pack leadership and council membership. She's clearly unstable, paranoid. Her husband has been telling us for months that she's been imagining threats. Garrett tried. Because her husband was instructed to gaslight her, to make her doubt her own perceptions so she wouldn't discover the cameras. Evelyn's voice was cold. He's admitted everything. It's all recorded. And it's all about to become very public unless you want to answer for it here and now. The trial took 3 days. Evidence was presented, thousands of hours of surveillance footage, detailed communications, testimony from Marcus, who'd been granted immunity in exchange for cooperation. Other wolves came forward, confirming they'd also felt watched, also experienced gaslighting, also been told they were paranoid when they were actually being systematically monitored. By the end, Alpha Garrett had been stripped of his position and expelled from the council. Marcus had been sentenced to exile from all pack territories for his role in the deception, and new protocols had been established. Bloodline wolves could not be monitored without explicit consent. Fake mate bonds were criminally prosecutable, and any alpha found conducting unauthorized surveillance faced immediate removal. But the damage was done. Evelyn stood in her house, her now actually private house, cameras all removed, and felt the weight of betrayal that wouldn't lift. 3 years of her life had been a lie. Her marriage was fiction. Her trust had been shattered in ways that might never fully heal. How are you holding up? Luna Maranoli elected Alpha to replace Garretask during a check-in visit a week after the trial. That's a lot to process. Finding out your entire relationship was a manipulation. Evelyn stopped. She'd been about to say fine, but that was a lie. I'm destroyed and furious, and I don't know how to trust anyone anymore. How do I know the next person I meet isn't also monitoring me? How do I know another alpha isn't running the same program? Her voice cracked. How do I ever feel safe again? I don't have easy answers. What was done to you was profound violation. But Evelyn Mara's voice was gentle. You survived it. You found the truth. You exposed the entire operation and saved other wolves from the same fate. That's not nothing. That's actually extraordinary. It doesn't feel extraordinary. It feels like Evelyn gestured vaguely at her empty house. Like I have power now, but no one to share it with. Like I won but lost everything that mattered in the process. Then you rebuild. Slowly, carefully, with people you choose to trust rather than people who were planted in your life. Mara stood. And you use that lunar power for something good. Something that honors what you survived. You don't let the violation define you. Over the next year, Evelyn did exactly that. She learned to control her lunar abilities, working with the few other bloodline wolves who came forward after the trial. She helped establish protection protocols for other rare bloodline individuals. She spoke at pack gatherings about recognizing surveillance and gaslighting. She turned her trauma into advocacy. And slowly, very slowly, she started to trust again. Started to rebuild connections with pack members who'd proven themselves genuinely supportive. Started to imagine a future that wasn't defined by betrayal. 5 years after finding the camera, Evelyn stood in a council meeting discussing new bloodline wolf protection legislation. She was testifying as an expert witness, using her experience to inform policy. And sitting in the audience, she noticed someone watching her. Not with Marcus's clinical detachment, but with genuine interest, respect, maybe even admiration. After the meeting, the man approached. Evelyn, I'm Declan. I'm well. I'm also lunar bloodline. I was one of the wolves who came forward after your trial. I just wanted to say what you've built, the protections you've established. saved lives, including mine, so thank you. Evelyn looked at him, this stranger with kind eyes who understood what it felt like to be hunted for your bloodline. You want to get coffee? Compare notes on our abilities. Maybe help each other figure out how to live with power everyone else fears. I'd like that. Declan's smile was warm, genuine. I'd like that a lot. It wasn't romance. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it was connection. Real connection built on truth and shared experience and mutual understanding. It was the beginning of trust that wasn't manufactured. Of relationship that wasn't surveillance. It was Evelyn choosing to try again. Choosing to risk despite the betrayal she'd survived. Choosing to believe that not everyone was Marcus. Not every alpha was Garrett. And not every relationship was a trap waiting to spring. 10 years after finding the camera, Evelyn and Declan were actually mated this time, with a real bond that manifested naturally and couldn't be faked. They'd built a life together based on absolute honesty, transparency, and respect for each other's autonomy. They'd also built a network of bloodline wolves who supported each other, protected each other, and ensured no one else would be isolated and targeted the way they'd been. Do you ever think about him? Declan asked one evening. They were sitting on their porch, watching the moon rise, responded to both their lunar powers with silver light. Marcus, Alpha Garrett. What they did. Sometimes. Evelyn's voice was thoughtful. But less and less. They don't define me anymore. The cameras, the surveillance, the gaslighting had happened. It was real. It was traumatic. But it's not who I am. It's just something I survived and transformed into purpose. You're remarkable. You know that? Declan pulled her closer. You took the worst violation and turned it into protection for hundreds of other wolves. That's extraordinary. It's survival. It's making meaning from trauma. It's refusing to let them win by making me small or afraid or broken. Evelyn looked at the moon, felt its power humming through her bloodline. I'm lunar bloodline. I'm powerful. I'm unstoppable. And I'm choosing to use that power to make sure no one else has to find hidden cameras in their own home. To make sure no one else gets gaslit by the person they trust most. To make sure bloodline wolves are celebrated rather than hunted. Evelyn smiled. That's the legacy. Not what Marcus did to me, but what I built after surviving it. 20 years after finding the camera, Evelyn was leading the Council's Bloodline Protection Division. She'd helped identify and protect over 200 rare bloodline wolves. She'd prosecuted 17 separate surveillance operations similar to what Garrett had run. She'd changed legislation across all 5 territories to ensure what happened to her could never happen to anyone else. And when young wolves came to her scared, violated, gaslit, she told them her story, showed them the camera she'd kept as a reminder, explained how paranoia turned out to be perception, how gaslighting was real abuse, how surviving meant not letting the violation define you. You found the camera, a young wolf said to her once, eyes wide with admiration. You exposed everything. You changed the laws. How did you do all that? I got angry. Evelyn's answer was simple. I got angry, and I refused to be silent. I refused to let them make me doubt my reality. I refused to accept that being powerful meant being monitored and controlled. I got angry, and I turned that anger into action. What happened to Marcus? Your fake mate. Exiled. Last I heard, he's living in human territories under a different name. Can never return to pack lands. Can never hold pack positions. Lives with knowing he destroyed his own future for money he never actually received. Evelyn's voice held no sympathy. And Alpha Garrett died in prison 3 years ago. Alone. Disgraced. Abandoned by everyone who'd once followed him. Good. The young wolf's voice was fierce. They deserved that. Maybe. Maybe not. I don't spend much time thinking about what they deserved. I spend time thinking about what other wolves deserve. Safety. Autonomy. The right to exist without surveillance. The right to develop powers without being monitored and sold. That's what matters. Not revenge. Protection. The young wolf stopped, searching for words. That's really powerful. That's survival. Evelyn smiled. That's what happens when you find the camera. Expose the truth. And refuse to let them make you paranoid when you were actually just perceptive all along. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Where are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. I love hearing your thoughts. And if you'd like to support me, please subscribe. It's free and it helps more people hear these stories.